Hi guys, it's Spencer. Welcome to Sphinx Reads, and this is my mid-year book freakout tag. I know that this is very, very late. Usually people do this at the beginning of July or the end of June, and by the time you're seeing this, it's almost at the end of July. I initially wasn't going to do this because I had found out about this tag pretty late, but thanks to Moon from Moonlight Scrawls, channel link down below, I was tagged, and so I thought, you know what, let's just do it even though this is really late. I'm just gonna jump into the tag questions because they're kind of a lot, so let's get started. So the first question is the best book you've read so far this year. That would have to be The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson. The Bands of Mourning is the third book in the Mistborn Era 2 series. It's a quartet. The fourth book is coming out next year, I believe. And out of Brandon Sanderson's books, and really inside and out of the Cosmere, this has to be my favorite one. It's such an adventure. It's such a ride emotionally. It's so much fun. The characters that we follow are just, I would die for them. They are just some of the best characters I've ever read. Next, we have the best sequel you've read so far this year, and I was debating whether to pick The Well of Ascension, which is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, or Exile from the Keeper of the Lost City series. And honestly, even though I loved The Well of Ascension, I loved it consistently, but by the end, I didn't have much of an emotional punch, which I always look for in books. While Exile, it does have a little bit of an emotional punch, but I thought that that book was just so full of happiness and friendship and all the good things that I loved about the Keeper of the Lost City series. Obviously, if you're seeing this and you've watched my previous videos, you know that I've given up on that series, but at least for the best sequel, like the second book in a series, that would have to be Exile from Keeper of the Lost Cities. Next question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I can't really answer this question because I'm not one to look for new releases or looking forward to them. I usually read backlist books, or if it's a new release I'm interested in, I don't usually read it immediately, so I can't really answer this question. Next is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Again, I don't really look forward to reading new releases immediately, but I am looking forward to number one, Cytonic, which is the third book in the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. It's a young adult sci-fi series that is it's amazing. I love the first book, Skyward. For full thoughts on Skyward, I will have a review coming up in the next few weeks for it, so look out for that. The other one is an anticipated release, but not the most anticipated, is the Tale of Sorcery, which is the third book in the A Tale of Magic series by Chris Colfer, which is actually a spin-off or prequel series to his more popular series, The Land of Stories, which is a middle grade fantasy series set in the fairy tale world, a world where all the fairy tales are connected. This series covers kind of the backstory of the fairy godmother. The first book explored like magic, the second book explored witchcraft, and the third book is going to explore sorcery, which I'm really excited to learn about. I didn't like the second book of the series, A Tale of Witchcraft, but I'm still looking forward to reading this. Number 5, the biggest disappointment. I have a few actually, and one is The Mystery of the Tolling Bell by Caroline Keene. This is the 23rd book in the Nancy Drew series. I'm sure that most of you have already heard of Nancy Drew. It's a very popular, I would consider it a classic middle grade mystery companion book series, so you can read them in any order, I believe. We follow our main character, Nancy Drew, kind of traveling and solving mysterious cases. My buddy read this with my friend Claude from Book Blossom Claude's channel link down below, and we both agreed that this book did not age well. There's some problematic elements to it. Aside from that, this was also my introduction to Nancy Drew. I've been long wanting to get into Nancy Drew, find out what it is that people love so much about this series, and I didn't hate it, but I was expecting a lot more, like so much more. I was expecting it to be 3 times better than the book actually was. Even though I didn't hate this book, it was still disappointing because I was expecting so much more. The other book is Waiting for Fits by Spencer Hyde. Oh my goodness. So this is part of my TBR challenge, which I'll have a wrap up for pretty soon. I'm super late in filming videos, but I guess I can talk about this book now. So Waiting for Fits is about this. We have a main character. I already forgot the name of the main character. But the main character has OCD, and she's going into this mental health facility because her symptoms have been kind of limiting her functioning. She goes to this facility where she meets a bunch of other kids with other mental health problems. There's one with the autism spectrum disorder, there's one who has anger issues. There's just all these kids who have somehow, they all have different mental illnesses, as if they're like token mental illnesses almost. And then she also befriends this one kid who has schizophrenia, whose name is Fitz, like waiting for Fitz. This book has a quite a low average rating on Goodreads, but if you look through the reviews, it's either they're like 5-star, 4-star, or they're like 2 stars or 1 star. Oh my goodness. Okay, I had very low expectations for this book. I just thought the concept was intriguing because I'm looking to read more books with mental health rep. Even though I had such low expectations for this book already, it's still disappointed. It was so bad. Number one, it was written so poorly. I hated the narrator. It's so bad. I personally can't speak on the mental health rep, whether it was good or bad, because I don't have first-hand experiences with many of these mental illnesses, but from just my perspective, from my point of view, I thought it was really, really bad. It was almost as if the author wanted me to hate all of these characters. It was so bad. Like, they had no... Okay, there were 2 characters that were somewhat endearing, but overall, I don't understand. I had to keep checking myself because I was thinking, do I just dislike these characters because of my personal biases? But it wasn't that at all, I don't think, because I was wanting to love these characters. I was wanting to root for them, to understand them, but there were just some choices made in the actual plot that I was just... It was terrible. If you want to see like a more coherent review for it, I'll have a link to my Goodreads and you can check out my review for that book. It was something else. Okay, I had to turn on a light because it's getting kind of overcast outside. Next we have biggest surprise. Okay, so I'm just gonna assume that this is a big surprise in terms of like being a good book. And there are a few, which makes me so happy. Okay, the first one is Fahrenheit 451. This is a classic, everyone knows about it, and some of you may have had this a required reading in high school or something. I was not disappointed. Like, I loved Fahrenheit 451 so much. Like, the writing, excellent. The plot, excellent. The characters, amazing. And the themes, I just love Fahrenheit 451. So I don't feel the need to talk more about it because most of you already know of it at least. If you're looking for a very easy introduction to classics, even though this is kind of a modern classic, I would give this one a shot because it's so accessible and I just love this book so much. Next is Warbreaker. This is the second Cosmere novel that I've read, written by Brandon Sanderson. I was already expecting to like it somewhat because so many people have hyped it up, but I did not expect to like it as much as I did. In this story, we follow 2 sisters, one who is married off to a god king in a neighboring kingdom, and another who was supposed to be the one to be married off to that god king, and who tries to rescue the other sister. You have a magic system that's based on color. If you want full thoughts for Warbreaker, I'll have a link to my review for that down below. Another one is super unexpected. This is A Walk to Remember by Nicholas Sparks. I read this as part of my TBR challenge for this year. I forgot what the prompt was, but I remember I just took this as an opportunity to try out a genre that I don't usually read from, which is romance. And I thought, why not read a Nicholas Sparks book? Because Nicholas Sparks is kind of one of the most influential romance authors, and I thought, well, this could be my introduction to Nicholas Sparks, and I think it would be a good like furthering of my awareness about the romance genre. I love this book so much. I've seen the film, but I did not really like it. I think that's kind of an unpopular opinion. A lot of people love the film more, but I actually love the book more. It was just so sweet, so heartbreaking. The characters were so endearing. If you're not familiar with the story yet, we follow a main character. I don't remember the main character's name. This guy, he's in high school and he's made some bad decisions in his life and he has to participate in this play that the school puts on, and he has to be with the weird girl who's like the son of a pastor, and it sounds super cliche, and it kind of is, but nonetheless, I just really love this story, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading more of Nicholas Sparks' works as well as trying out more romance books. Another one is Skyward, which I already talked about a little bit earlier. It has been a while since I've read sci-fi. I think the last that I read was last year, and it was only one book. And I just love how I was endeared to the cast of characters that we follow in Skyward. And another one was a book that, again, was part of my TBR challenge, which is Memories by Lang Liav. This is actually a collection of poems, and I know there are a lot of Lang Liav memes and jokes about like her poetry and how it's pretty easy to copy her style, but I actually enjoyed this book. I, of course, didn't love all of them, but some of them were so hard-hitting that I was pleasantly surprised because I don't read that much poetry, and I love this collection in general. Okay, next, favorite new author, either a debut author or someone new to you. So obviously Brandon Sanderson, I have zero regrets about deciding to read all of Brandon Sanderson's full-length works this year, and now that I love most of his books, and I'm still looking forward to reading more from him for the rest of the year. Another one would have to be Dustin Tao, who is the author of You Reach Sam. I was able to read an arc for this. It comes out in November, I think. I really liked You Reach Sam. It didn't blow me away necessarily, but I just love Dustin Tao's writing. It's so immersive and atmospheric. I think I gave You Reach Sam like 4 or 4.5 stars, but I'm looking forward to more from Dustin Tao because I just feel that he has so much more to offer, and this debut novel just absolutely impressed me. And the other one is Erin Entrada Kelly, who is the author of We Dream of Space. This was my first novel that I've read from Erin Entrada Kelly, and it did not disappoint. It was a little bit slow going at the beginning. We follow 3 siblings who are in the same grade, 2 because they're twins and another because he was held back a year. They have different interests. One is interested in sports, but he has a broken arm. One loves arcade games. I believe this was set in like the 60s or 70s. And another one loves to draw and build things. I'm just so happy by the end of this book, and I'm looking forward to reading more from Erin Entrada Kelly. Sorry if you're kind of hearing more of a background noise. The guy decided to bring down a storm again, so I'm sorry about that. Next is New Fictional Crush, and almost every person that I've watched who has done this tag has said, I don't really have fictional crushes, and I thought for sure that I was going to respond the same, but having just finished Mistborn Era 2, or what's been published so far, I would have to say Marasi Combs she just makes me swoon every time she's on page. This really amazing woman who is a constable in this world, and if I ever met Marasi, I would just like bow down to her and just be absolutely happy. I don't know anymore if you can hear me because the storm outside is super loud, but I'll just move on. Newest favorite character. I actually listed quite a few, but I'll go through these pretty fast. Keith, I've talked about him so much before. He is one of the friends of our main character, Sophie Foster, in the Keeper of the Lost City series. He's kind of like the comic relief of the story, but he's also a really kind friend who always has Sophie's back. Another one is Parlin. I know some of the people who are participating with the Cosmic Crab Along are going to laugh at this because I think I'm the only person who actually cares about Parlin. He is a character in the book Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. And I don't know what it is. Parlin is just like such an endearing and funny character to me that it kind of sucks that nobody else like cares about him that much. Another one is Elend from the Mistborn trilogy. And yes, Elend is amazing. He always wants to do what's right even though he fails sometimes, and guess you're a man like Elend. Another one would have to be Kimmelin from Skyward. She is top tier, ideal, best friend, and I would die for Kimmelin. She is amazing. Another one is from a book that I didn't necessarily love, but this character is everything. It's Hassan from The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini. I have my feelings about this book, which I'll talk about more in my TBR challenge wrap-up, but Hassan, what a friend. I have to say that very solemnly because of all the things that Hassan goes through in the book. Oh my gosh, The Kite Runner, so much happens. And finally, for this question, Bird from We Dream of Space. She's the one who loves to draw and build things. Moving on to the next question, a book that made you cry. I've already mentioned 2, which is Warbreaker, made me cry, A Walk to Remember. I remember listening to this on audiobook, and I was cleaning, and there was a specific line that just hit me, and I was just like, ah! I cried in that book. The other one might be a little bit unexpected, but I read the second book in the Winnie the Pooh series, I guess, or I cried when I read The House at Pooh Corner. Just the ending is so bittersweet and so precious, and it made me cry. Then, if you haven't heard already, I cried a lot when I read The Hero of Ages, which is the third book in the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. Next, book that made you happy. Sugar and Spite, which is a middle grade novel by Gail D. Villanueva, which is set in the Philippines. It's a magical realism novel. Like Enemies to Best Friends story, which is super heartwarming light read. The other two that made me happy are Wonderstruck, which is a graphic novel by Brian Selznick. We follow two characters, one whose story is told in words and one whose story is told in pictures, and both of these characters are deaf. I'll also have a link to my review for that down below. Then another one, which is Flipped. I first watched the movie and I absolutely loved it, even though I liked the movie more than the book. When I read the book afterwards, I still love this young love kind of story, and it just made me so happy. Partly because of the young love kind of story, but also because of the family dynamic of one of our main characters, Julie. I'll have a review for Flip coming up, so stay tuned for that. Number 12, the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. And I would have to say, there's three. One is The Marvels, which I'm currently reading. It's by Brian Selznick. It has gold edges, and just look at this cover. Isn't it gorgeous? I also really love the cover of The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Then I'll have to also mention Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. I love this book, but also this cover is really pretty in my opinion. In fact, after I just bought this book, I was just looking at it, and I screamed, like, "You're so beautiful, I love you." And my sister overheard me, which was hilarious because she didn't realize I was talking to a book, and she was just like weirded out, like, why? Who is my brother talking to? Then lastly, wow, I've been rambling for so long. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Obviously the rest of the Cosmere, so I still need to read. I'm currently reading The Way of Kings. I need to read Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, Rhythm of War, as well as the novellas in between, which are Edge Dancer and Dawn Shard. I'm also planning to read the His Dark Materials trilogy, which I am hoping to put up a serious review as soon as I finish it, because I have loved the series that they have going on. The first two seasons / 2 books have already been out. Looking forward to the third season, which will cover the last book, which will come out, I believe, next year. That is it for my very late mid-year book freakout tag. If you couldn't already tell, I was already freaking out because I listed so many books and so many characters and just so many answers for many of these questions, as well as I have not been filming a lot lately, so I'm just glad to kind of just get this out of the way, even though this was really very, very fun. So thank you, Moon, again for tagging me. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please forget to subscribe so that you can do it later, and have a good day.